Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining our podcast, Moms on the Move. I'm Jen Wills.
And I'm Jennifer Sess.
We have Leni Whildin here with us today. I want to first start off by apologizing to this woman who did not know she was coming to the studio for a video podcast. And in wonderful health resolutions, you've been at the gym.
This is very true.
So you just did 2 very intense cardio classes.
Yeah, that's right.
And look at her, guys. Look at her. She's fantastic.
She's amazing.
So we wanted to talk about foster care, and you were recommended to come talk to us about foster care. So thanks for coming.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Even though you hate me right now.
It's all good. It's all good.
We love you.
We love you so much.
I am happy to talk and share without makeup or my hair. It's fine.
It's totally fine, guys. So, we just did a podcast on mission trips. We've done a podcast on adoption. And obviously there is a need in South Carolina and across the country for fosters. Mm-hmm. So tell us your experience.
So my experience with has been specifically really with teens in foster care. When we moved here in 2012, I started as a mentor for teens that were aging out in the foster care system for an organization called Fostering Great Ideas. And so I started as a mentor, and then throughout the time, I built a relationship with David White, the CEO of FGI, and we did a lot of program development, trying to fill in some of the holes to help support, because the expectations and the need for the social workers and for DSS and the county is so extensive that there's a lot of areas that they just don't have the capacity to really help with the children in foster care. So we. Through FGI, through Fostering Great Ideas, I worked with David in developing some different programs and policies and procedures. So started as a mentor and then ended up serving on the board of directors and kind of spearheading a lot of the growth. And they just celebrated their 10th anniversary.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I continued as a mentor for foster care. And then after I was on the board, I kind of rolled out of that. And then I filled 2 terms, which is the max. So I'm actually mentoring again a teen that's getting ready to age out. So it gives an opportunity because a lot of the teenagers, number one, it's harder for them to get placed into foster homes. The state's trying to steer away from, the group home mentality and really try to give them the most realistic home setting, which is what we would want for all of them.
Yeah.
I think teenagers, it gets a little scarier. They're a little mouthier. But I mean, all kids of all ages have their challenges and their struggles. So I'm also, my full-time job, I was a high school counselor. So one of our students transferred into the school, and he had been in a group home here for 2.5 years. He had a failed adoption with a family that actually had adopted his biological brother. And so he was just really struggling a lot. He ended up running away from the group home and called me and said, what do I need to do to finish school? So I worked with him to get him to turn himself in to, not terms, but to, we contacted DSS and then through a lot of advocating and a lot of work, we got him in our home in a week. So we fostered him. And then, so he was 17 when he came with us. So then we actually ended up adopting him. So we adopted, he was 17 and a half.
Oh,
we were the 3rd online adoption through the state during COVID. So, so our first picture as a family is a screenshot from somebody's laptop that they sent us. So there's such a sense of urgency, especially for the teenagers. So we continue now. We do respite care, which is an opportunity for families that maybe don't necessarily want to have the long-term commitment, because foster, kids can be with you anywhere from days to years.
Wow.
It really just depends on the situation with the biological parents or with the family that's planning to take them. There's a lot of different opportunities for families to get involved, or for people that just know the child. So we ended up doing fictive care when we initially had brought him in with us, and it expedited a lot of.
So what exactly is respite care and what is it, fictive?
Fictive. So, I mean, ultimately the goal is for children to remain with family.
Right.
When that's not, whether that's grandparents, uncles, aunts, sis, whatever. When that's not an option for children, then they end up, with a foster parent. Foster parents are able to really set the parameters of what they feel comfortable with, that they can or are willing or want to accept into their home. So whether they're a single, somebody that's single and is a female, might only want females and not want males, or different ages and things like that, just depending on what our comfort level is. So respite, so when you bring a child into your home for foster, it's really the expectation or the hope is that they'll be able to maintain and be able to stay there for the time that they're in foster care until they're able to reunify with their family. Okay. Respite is more of a short-term placement.
Like an emergency type?
Yeah. So if there's children that are brought out of the home and there's nowhere to go for a few days until they find a foster home replacement for them, they would contact us. Or if there's a foster parent that just can't do it anymore, or something happens, or it's just they're not compatible, they'll ask for a placement. If this child
is that kind of what you did with when he ran away?
Yes.
Okay.
We weren't licensed or doing anything at that point, but that was how we kind of just upped the ante and went through it. So his guardian ad litem was like, I have no idea how you did that. But it was through the experience with Fostering Great Ideas that I was able to kind of figure out.
Is Fostering Great Ideas a state organization or not?
No, it's a local nonprofit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So Fostering Great Ideas it's national now, and we also do some work internationally. So It started as trying to improve foster care within the upstate and with South Carolina, and it's kind of has taken off.
That's great.
Yeah. So, so respite is really, it's only a few days. And if they call you and say, we have, this child, this age, these are the issues, then you can decide whether that's something that you're comfortable with or not. I have a household of boys, so I just do boys.
Right.
Because they're also getting into the teenage years, and I don't want to deal with the drama. So it's just, and it's what I know.
So
it's what I've parented.
Teenage boys is
Go with what you know.
Yes. So my kids are now 19 down to 13. So it's just easier for me, and our comfort level is just to have, the males in the house. So
are you currently fostering?
We don't have anybody in the home right now.
Okay.
We've done some respite. We actually did end up with a female. I was doing a recruiting online Zoom, and the supervisor was talking about us. Because what happens is, really, these kids sit in the office. And DSS, the caseworker that's on call, can't go home until that child's placed somewhere.
Wow.
So, and there's times where those kids have to sleep in the office and the caseworkers have to stay. So there's a great need. And sometimes if it's just a few days and you can do that and people are willing to make that short-term sacrifice, it makes it worth it.
I feel like people don't realize that option is available, because I know I have a lot of friends who have fostered or are actually even interested in fostering. And that's another reason I thought this was good, because it could answer some questions for people. But, and again, knowing that it's not definitely going to be years and there is this like emergency and you could potentially end up fostering after the respite period. At least knowing that's an option.
Yeah, it's less of a commitment. It makes it a little bit less scary. Some parents, that's just what they do. They fostered for years and they just have a revolving door and they're able to do that. And for families, we were going to do it a few years ago, and my husband's in the reserves and he was activated and deployed. So we get held off on the license and kind of pursuing that. So our 19-year-old, it's been a lot of work and it's been challenging on the family. And it wasn't something we were looking for. It just kind of happened. It's a blessing, and he completes our family, and we can't imagine life without him. But that's why the kids were like, let's do respite and let's just see how it goes, and we're okay with that. And if someone comes and enters our home and it's where they're meant to stay, then we'll go, and we'll have to trust that process. So. But respite, I think for people that want to dabble in it and try and see what the experience is like, it's a great opportunity to short term really be able to support DSS and also that.
So is that something that you would go get licensed through the state?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what that looks like?
So it's the application process. I mean, it's a bunch of paperwork. It's financial stuff. They just want to make sure that, that you're able to meet the needs of your home and also that child. There is a stipend that the parents will receive that they get. It's fingerprints, it's background checks, it's things like that. There are classes that the Department of Social Services requires you to take as part of the approval process. It's a fire inspection. But a lot of times it's a lot of basic stuff. As long as you can just sit down and fill out the paperwork.
It's funny you say the fire. I heard there was something, this is so random, with windows. Like what exactly?
The windows have to be big enough that the child can get out of it in the event that there's a fire.
Because I heard like there's some like old homes in like North Maine and Augusta. So people who have tried to go through the fostering are like sometimes rejected because the windows.
Never think of that.
Crazy.
Yeah, like if you're in a basement and it's just, it's finished and it's a bedroom, but maybe the window is just like, and sometimes the houses are like half up, so that child can't get out of that window. So it does, but besides that, it's just making sure that there's smoke detector. It's a lot of stuff that we already have anyway. It's kind of standard in a home.
What about like schools? So a lot of times, you get usually like what I was reading, it's going to be 8 years and older is the norm, or average age of like 8 and older is the norm of a foster. So they're already established in a school system. Do they come to where you are zoned, or do you transport them? How does that?
So it really depends on what the foster parents are willing or able to do. The ultimate goal is to maintain as much consistency for the kids. There's already so much trauma, so much loss for them, losing their siblings if they're not able to be placed together in their family and things like that. So the ultimate goal is to be able to try to keep them. Some families just can't do that, or they have other kids where they're already dropping off at where they're zoned at and things like that. There's a responsibility for the school to do a plan in the event of a child that's in foster care. And if they recommend that that child remains, then that child should be able to stay and continue there. If it's not in the best interest of that foster family, though, they're going to try to work with the foster family as much as they can to be able to get the child placed where they need to be. So and that's with Greenville County. What's nice now, I mean, with the area here is that there's a lot of charter schools. Regardless of where you live, you can attend the charter schools if they have the space. So if there's a student that's at a charter school, it's a little bit more flexible and easy as long as the parents are able to get them there.
So what has fostering done for you personally?
It has been the hardest and most rewarding thing that we've ever done.
So parenting.
Yeah. Parenting somebody else's child.
Yeah.
It's funny because I always tell our 19-year-old, I always tell him he's the hardest person to love. And it's not because he's hard to love. It's because of the experiences that he had for the first 17 years of his life, which were incredibly traumatic. So it's their brain stops developing when the trauma starts.
Okay.
So there's pieces of their brain that actually, once they're being loved and nurtured, it's amazing how much that stimulates the brain development. So for instance, my 17-year-old who's done all the things that you can think of, has, really bad anxiety and anger issues and things like that. When he first came with us, we all sat down to watch a movie and he just curled up like a little kid and put his head on my lap.
Aww.
And because he's just, we all need to feel safe and to know that we're okay. And, we're the first place that he's ever felt safe. So it's those things.
And has he completely opened up, or it's still?
It's still, he's also 19.
Yeah, it's true.
So at 17, you know everything. I've already grown up. I already know I've already been through more than you've ever been through. So what are you going to teach me? What we've taught him is that we will love him unconditionally. And that's something that he never had before. And he now is starting to accept that and know that. My husband's in the Navy. Our son graduated from high school and joined the Navy. So he's active now in the military. He made a choice that he knew what he needed to do to stay focused and, to make himself proud of himself. So,
wow.
So he's stationed down in Florida right now.
Wow.
So it's been, it's an amazing success story for him and to see the growth, to be able to impact and just know that, for instance, when you have a girl come, you put all the stuff and things in the bathroom that girl might need because she might be coming with nothing.
Right.
Whether that's, feminine products, shampoo, conditioner, like all the things to just help them feel normal and okay in such an unnormal and not okay time. The transition of, going from different homes, it's exhausting.
I can't even comprehend. I actually
and you literally walk the talk. It's refreshing to hear everything you're saying. And I can imagine that anybody that does what you've done or that you come in contact with, they're a gift because it's not easy. Fostering is a beautiful thing, but like you said, there's a lot behind it. And it takes a really special person to take that on and to do that.
Thanks.
So if people are interested, what are realistic expectations? Just the emotions behind it. Because, you don't want to sit there and say, oh, it's just so rewarding. And because it is rewarding, but at the same time, if you set the platform and the expectations.
I mean, the realistic expectations are that, obviously the good outweighs the bad for those that continue to do it. The bad is hard. To be completely honest, it's the hardest. The last 2.5 years that we've had this, our son has been probably the most challenging. It's the dynamics within a home change.
Right.
But you get into it what you put out. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. So for each family and for each home, it's different.
Right.
There's some that take you in as their child and they love you and they'll take care of you and give you. And then there's some that meet the basic needs and do what they need to do. It really also is on each person's parenting style.
Right.
And emotional capacity too. But these kids, they're coming into your home and when our 17-year-old came, the first meal he ever had at a dining room table was PDQ chicken sandwich at my house.
And he was 17.
He was 17. They'd never sat down at a table.
They're bringing every experience they've ever had to your table, into your home. Everything they've ever been through, any trauma, anything they're bringing.
And it takes a lot for a child to be taken from a home. It's not an easy thing because ultimately the goal is for everybody to be in their home.
So an extreme neglect or abuse. Yep.
And, everything that they've known as dysfunctional or challenging as it's been, it's what they know.
Yep.
So to come into a middle-class home where the family sits down and eats together and has clothes and food and you don't have to hoard it and
basic things you don't even think of.
Right.
Are they in a lot of defense mode or fearful?
Yeah, I think emotionally, yes. I think the lack of trust and also the revolving door, there's a lot of loss. So, we think about major losses that we've had in our life when someone's passed away or, when we move and we leave our friends and things like that. These kids are losing some of them have been the caretaker for their siblings. If you have an older child that's 12, maybe he was the one taking care or she was the one taking care of the 2-year-old.
Wow.
The girl that I mentor now, she basically raised her youngest sister for the first few years of her life while her mother was addicted to drugs and they were living there. So that's a huge loss too, because they have taken on that parental role. So it's so much responsibility that they just forget how to be a kid.
Yeah, they got to grow up so fast.
I watched my 17-year-old run around and play hide and seek with a bunch of kids in the neighborhood. What 17-year-old really wants to do that? But he was just like, can I go? I was like, go. Be a kid, please. Laugh.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
And it's that magic. It's, seeing their face, open a gift that they asked for that they never thought that they would get, or having their first birthday cake because they've never had a birthday party. It's emotionally exhausting and it's hard because you really do, when you put your heart into it, you lose the child in a sense, but ultimately, as long as you have that mindset of knowing that for a short time while mom and dad or the grandparents or whoever get healthy and take care of themselves, that it's okay.
You're providing something that is so necessary.
Yeah. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Of course.
I know there was a few people, like especially friends of mine again, who have expressed interest in this, and I hope that this kind of like, I don't know, maybe even just open the doors and open their hearts to it.
Yeah, you're never going to know unless you try.
Yep.
And that's, for us, investing the last few years in our son, that's why, we're doing the respite at this point.
Mm-hmm.
My kids are like, are we going to adopt every kid that comes in here? And it's like, no, that's not the expectation of foster care.
Right, exactly.
It's really ultimately supposed to be short term.
Yep.
To just help provide a safe place until the families are able to do that again for that child. Because ultimately, the parents love their kids. Biological parents love their kids. They just might not know how to do it.
Yep.
Because of their own trauma and their own struggles. And that's one of the programs. It's called Moms Matter that Fostering Great Ideas does, is it gives a support system for those parents, those biological parents that have recently lost their kids, because there's a lot of expectations of things that they need to fulfill to do to get their kids back. And it can seem really intimidating and really daunting.
Right.
So it's a way to empower them instead of shaming them, not taking away from the harm that's been caused to those children. But those moms also need the opportunity for someone to teach them.
Right. It's a cycle.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you again. Where can everyone find the organizations that you mentioned?
Fostering Great Ideas, it's fgionline.org.
Okay.
And then also just the South Carolina Department of Social Services. They can go on and get in touch. And there's a lot of organizations like through FGI. There's a program that will talk and try to recruit. And there's some online info sessions where we talk about our experiences.
Okay.
So they can find a lot of information there. I did a recruitment session online a few weeks ago, and every day when we drop, it sounds cheesy, but every day when I drop my kids off, at school, I tell them to go make the world a better place.
Yeah.
Whether that's opening the door for somebody or changing their life. And the same thing I tell all of those prospective parents that are interested in opening their homes is, if you can make the world a better place, do it. Why wouldn't you? These kids need a chance and a safe place. And if you can provide that, then do it.
I love that.
So
thank you so much.
Of course.
And I'm so sorry again.
It's all good. It's all
good. Thank you again for coming. I hope that this hit home to somebody that was interested. And again, the benefits to these children is just so important. So thank you, everyone, for watching. And we want to thank our sponsors, Nest Realty, Parham Smith Archenhold, Blackacre Law, Bodyworks, Browning Studio, Southern Girl Chic for dressing us, and Gretchen Dobbs with Penny Posies for the floral arrangements. And real quick, Jennifer wanted to say.
Yes, like I mentioned on the last podcast, we will be visiting Greenville and surrounding businesses, just dropping in and saying hello and getting to know you. We'd like to feature you on our page and our site. So be on the lookout for us.
Be on the lookout.
We start today.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next time.